Good morning, everybody. I'm Rennie Medler, and you're watching the 8 a.m. Proville News Report. Today's news: several pieces of electronics have gone missing all throughout the city, ranging from televisions, video game consoles, smartphones, toasters, and many more. It is not yet known why or how these are being stolen, but we've asked some people in the streets for their opinion.
Yeah, I was just sleeping one night in my mansion, when suddenly I hear a loud noise that sounded like glass being broken. So I run downstairs, only to discover that all my electronics had disappeared, and all I saw was a small green creature running in the darkness. Now, I think we all know what this really means. Yoda, from the Star Wars franchise, has visited Earth and is now stealing our electronics.
It's the government, dude. They're catching on that we're becoming smarter and smarter. So to suppress our spread of information, they're sending out government spies to take our electronics away from us. But you know what I say? The government. They will not divide us.
I think this is wonderful news. People these days need to stop looking at their phones and go outside and enjoy life for a moment. The internet is corrupting people's minds. Why not, instead of wasting our lives away on the internet, we all band together and try to get all these out of the country instead?
So we just cut that out. Yeah, let's cut that out. In other news, more and more space drones have been spotted all over the city, and people are wondering, are they ever going to find this alien girl they've been looking for, or will we be stuck with these drones forever?
Greetings everybody, I'm Commander Great, CG for short. As you may know, someone in the city has been going around stealing people's electronics. We don't know who it is yet, but my working theory is that it's either the mailman or the ghost of Ted Bundy. They've stolen my monitor, my 3DS, and even my Switch. But there's one thing that they haven't stolen yet. My super awesome flat screen TV.
Super awesome flat screen TV!
Yeah, surprisingly it hasn't been taken. Good thing too, because it would sure be a shame if I were to lose my super awesome flat screen TV.
Super awesome flat screen TV!
So I was thinking, since I got no games to play and Joe and Wally are out looking for that alien girl outside, I thought I could just chill in here and watch some nice shows and movies. Like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I would like to have my TV taken now.
Video game adaptations. This is what it's called when a game gets turned into something other than a game, like a movie or a TV show. These are known for being notoriously disappointing. Most of them are really bad and feel like they're made by people who never even played the game. That said, they're not all bad, and recently things seem to be turning around for them. So I decided I'd look through some of the most notorious ones and see where things went wrong, but also where things went right, starting with whatever this is. Quick, what's the first thing that pops into your head when you think Mario? Wrong! Bob Hoskins! This is the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, also known as This movie is infamous for being one of the worst video game movies of all time. Ironically, it was also the first video game movie of all time, at least outside of Japan. It almost fails at pretty much everything that the games are known for and bears almost no resemblance to its source material. You know the Mushroom Kingdom, right? Home of the Toads and their ruler, Princess Peach. The place that's filled with a bunch of grassy fields, large hills with eyes, and a lot of coins. Now, forget about all of that. In the Mario movie, there is no Mushroom Kingdom. Instead, we get this Blade Runner-inspired Dino Hatton, where half-human, half-reptile people walk around under the rule of King Koopa. Yeah, that's supposed to be Bowser.
How can that be Bowser? He doesn't even have nice juicy thighs!
Not even the signature Mario Brothers look like their in-game counterparts. Mario here is portrayed by Bob Hoskins, with John Leguizamo as Luigi. Now, I do think these are good actors, it's just that they don't really feel like Mario and Luigi. Mario looks way too old and Luigi looks way too young. They feel more like a father and son dynamic rather than a pair of brothers, and when the movie is called Super Mario Bros., then that's a bit of a problem. In fact, nothing in this movie really looks or feel like its in-game counterpart. This is supposed to be a Goomba. This is supposed to be Toad. This is supposed to be Yoshi. That's literally just a dinosaur. What, did the budget run out and you had to borrow it from the Jurassic Park team? It's pretty well known by this point that this movie is not very good. As a Mario movie, yeah, if you don't think of this as a Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's actually a pretty charming flick. The relationship between Mario and Luigi feels really genuine. The actors really do a good job at portraying them. The set design is also beautiful. It truly feels like you're transported to another world. You know, it's just not Mario's world. It has its flaws and it's absolutely not a good adaptation, but on its own, I think there's some fun to be had with it. Now, if you wanted to see Mario outside of video games in the early 90s, your only real other option would have been the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. It was either that or staring at a cereal box. This is the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, created by Deke Entertainment. Stop laughing. The Super Show is such a charming little show. It's separated between live action and animated segments, with wrestler Captain Lou Albano portraying Mario and Danny Wells as Luigi. Is it cheesy? Yes. Can it have some weirdly animated parts sometimes? Yes. Do I still love it all the same? Absolutely. Compared to the movie, this show is 100 times better. First off, the characters actually look like how they're supposed to. The live action portions of the show follows Mario and Luigi as they live in Brooklyn, where they often get joined by a guest star like Elvis or Dracula.
I understand you have bats in your basement.
Some goofy shenanigans then ensue, the guest does something funny, and then they do the Mario. The animated segments, on the other hand, can get absolutely crazy. Sometimes it'll follow the game's plot, with Princess Toadstool getting kidnapped with Mario and Luigi needing to save her. Other episodes, however, have no correlation to the games at all. Like, I swear, after a certain point, they just gave up on trying to follow the games and just did movie parodies instead, like Star Koopa being a parody of Star Wars. For all its flaws, it's a pretty fun show, and it also wasn't the only Mario show that came out. Yeah, the production team Geek Entertainment actually made 2 more Mario shows, being The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World. These can also be quite fun, but personally, I always preferred the Super Show. I used to watch the Super Show as a kid, so I'll always have some nostalgia for it. And also, in the other shows, they cut out the live-action bits, so they're automatically worse in my mind. The company Geek Entertainment was actually behind a lot of other video game cartoons too, such as the Zelda cartoon. We don't talk about that one. And arguably their most famous works, the Sonic cartoons. There are 3 of these made by Geek, being The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, also known as Sonic SatAM, and Sonic Underground. Out of the 3, I'd say Sonic SatAM is the best one. It generally takes itself more seriously, with it being set in this world where Dr. Robotnik already rules the world, with Sonic being a freedom fighter along with a group of other animals. Now, the most notorious character this show introduced was Sally Acorn, who's become a fan favorite in the Sonic fandom, for better or for worse. This show has gained a lot of fans over the years and sort of formed a fandom all of its own. People seem to really enjoy the world this show set up, and many people are still demanding its return. But knowing the way Sega is, and since it's been so long since its cancellation, I'm pretty sure that we won't be seeing it come back anytime soon. Then we got the other one. Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog in comparison is a lot sillier. Whereas Sonic SatAM goes for a more serious and grounded tone, this one is just batshit insane. It's structured pretty much like a Looney Tunes cartoon, with Dr. Robotnik always being out to catch Sonic, with him always somehow managing to escape. Now, don't get me wrong, I love me a goofy cartoon. I mean, one of my favorite cartoons of all time is Animaniacs. This one, however, is just way too silly. It's to the point where it's just hard to watch sometimes. Scenes will just go on and linger on the same jokes that eventually it just gets kind of annoying. Of course, the show isn't all bad. There can be some funny scenes, and Robotnik in this is just such a joy to watch whenever he's on screen. Then there's Sonic Underground. I don't want to talk about Sonic Underground. Out of all the animated video game adaptations from this time period, however, I'd say none were as influential as the Pokémon anime. What, did you think I was going to say the Mega Man cartoon? Pokémon was absolutely huge in the 90s, with everyone pretty much obsessing over the games, the cards, and of course, the anime. Yeah, the Pokémon anime is technically a video game adaptation. While yes, in North America and Europe, the games came after the anime, in Japan, it was the other way around. And for being an early video game adaptation, it's not that bad. You know, obviously it's made for kids, so you probably wouldn't get that much from watching it as an adult, but it's something to put on for your kids. It's a pretty fun and charming show. So charming, in fact, that it went on for over 20 years.
And the kid is still 10?
Now, with every popular franchise, there must eventually be a movie, and Pokemon is no different. There's been a few of these made, you know, not a lot, just 27.
Damn, and how many Croc movies have there been? Well, if that doesn't show you what's wrong with the world, then I don't know what does.
The first one of these was Pokemon the First Movie, also known as Mewtwo Strikes Back. This movie was hyped up like crazy. It had a bunch of ads on TV, its own promotional cards, and even Burger King toys.
Burger King and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission want you to know about the voluntary recall of this Pokemon Pokeball.
Okay, maybe not the Burger King toys. The movie follows Ash, Brock, and Misty as they get invited to a mysterious island to battle the ultimate Pokemon Master, which is revealed to be Mewtwo. Now, I think Mewtwo is definitely the most interesting part of this movie. He's an artificially created Pokemon, being a clone of Mew. His whole life he's always had people trying to control him and use his power for themselves, and now he's finally had enough. He's really an interesting character. You almost feel bad for him in a way. Rewatching this movie today, I also realized how dark he can get at some points, like when all the Pokemon are forced to fight through clones in that infamous scene where Ash gets turned to stone. For what it is, I'd say it's an okay movie, but only if you've seen the anime. Yeah, if you jump into this movie without having any prior exposure to the franchise, you'd be very confused. It's not really welcoming to newcomers, but that's okay. You just gotta watch it alongside the anime, so I wouldn't say it's that big of a problem. I mean, why would anyone ever complain about that? Not even fighting games were safe from getting adapted, such as the Street Fighter movie, the Mortal Kombat cartoon, and of course, the Mortal Kombat movie. Mortal Kombat, a game about fighting to the death with lots of blood and gore. It's actually one of the main reasons we now have the ESRB ratings on every game. I mean, look at this!
Johnny Cage wins.
Yeah, that dude just punched that guy's head off. Mortal Kombat is a video game franchise starting all the way back in 1992 with the first game being an arcade game, but now has a crap ton of games, with the most recent game being Mortal Kombat 11 coming out in 2019, and Mortal Kombat 12 being announced for this year. The story is about a tournament held once every generation called Mortal Kombat, where people of all different realms are chosen to compete in. Among those who were chosen are Liu Kang, the main character of the series, Sonya Blade, a military officer working with the Special Forces, and Johnny Cage, a movie star who oddly looks like me. Can you see the resemblance? So in 1995, we got the first ever Mortal Kombat movie, and it was pretty mixed around the time of its release, but the people who liked it deemed it to be the best video game adaptation at the time. We see characters like Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, Johnny Cage, Shang Tsung, Raiden, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kitana, Goro, and Reptile. Oh my god, what the hell is that? I think it's a pretty fun movie, even with its flaws. The action was pretty good, the movie actually followed the main plot of the first game pretty great, as well as adding changes and elements from the second game, and it has an amazing soundtrack. But this is Mortal Kombat, a game about fighting and brutally killing your opponent, and the movie had none of that. The movie's violence was basically 0 to none. No blood besides a little bit of bleeding from Shang Tsung, and no extreme deaths, mostly soul-sucking and throwing people off of stuff. The acting can be a bit cheesy at times, the CGI is something, and most of the characters don't get a lot of development, but other than those negatives, I really enjoyed this movie. Just don't mention the sequel. Now, I'd say the most interesting game adaptations were either in the 90s or more recently, because as the 2000s came along, a bunch of garbage just started being pumped out. Movie after movie after movie would come out based on a famous game that would feel absolutely nothing like the game it's adapting. There was a Doom movie, a Hitman movie, a Tomb Raider movie, even a Far Cry movie. So why is no one talking about these movies anymore?
Take a wild guess, Einstein.
It's 'cause they all suck! Max Payne, Postal, Dead or Alive, Resident Evil. Okay, actually the first Resident Evil movie isn't that bad. We can keep that one. So many of these movies are just unwatchable, and the guy we have to blame for many of these horrible movies is a man by the name of Uwe Boll. From a glance, Uwe Boll might just seem like an incompetent director who's made a bunch of bad video game movies, but in reality, this man is the ultimate genius of the entertainment industry. Apparently, and I'm not making this up, Uwe Boll discovered a German tax loophole where he can make a horribly made movie, and even if it flops, he can still make money off of it. This is why he's been able to make so many awful video game movies without losing a single dime. The German government was pretty much giving this man money to make shitty video game movies based on games that I doubt he had ever even played. Alone in the Dark, House of the Dead, In the Name of the King, these movies are genuinely some of the worst video game movies out there. Not just video game movies, but movies in general. But the thing is, Uwe knows they're bad. He knew they'd make money either way, so he just put as little effort as possible into them. And that son of a bitch got away with it too! And it gets crazier than that. Since his movies were so shitty, obviously critics would tear them to shreds. And for some reason, Uwe Boll would invite these critics of his movies to boxing matches to fight them. And he would actually win every time. This man is genuinely one of the most insane people in the entertainment industry. The reason you still hear people talk about the video game movie curse is because this guy made so many shitty video game movies that he pretty much ruined their reputation for years. He is the reason people see video game movies this way. Don't blame Mario, blame this guy! Now, while most video game movies in the 2000s were absolutely horrible, there were still some shows that were pretty decent. Most notably being Kirby Right Back at Ya, a pretty fun show starring Kirby, and and Sonic X. This was the 4th Sonic show that was made, this time being handled by Japanese studio TMS Entertainment instead of DiC, which I think was a good call. This series much better represents what Sonic is as a franchise compared to the ones in the 90s. It's a sort of fish out of water story, where Sonic and his friends get transported to the real world, where they then need to figure out how to get back home. All your favorite characters from the Sonic franchise are here! We got Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Rouge, Dr. Robotnik, Chris... Yeah, in this show they introduced this kid named Chris who becomes friends with Sonic and the others. This was probably done so the audience, that being little kids, could have someone to relate to. However, his inclusion in this show kinda ruins it for me a little bit. Every time he's on screen, he's just kind of annoying, and he always somehow manages to get himself in trouble. You just kinda start wondering why Sonic is even friends with this kid in the first place. So yeah, the inclusion of Chris and his whole family is definitely the worst part of the show. But when it's just Sonic and his friends on screen, the show can get pretty fun sometimes. The show also introduced many of the voice actors who would voice the characters in future games too, such as Mike Pollock as Dr. Eggman, who still voices him in games to this very day. You know, Sonic X might not hold up that well today, but I still respect it since it introduced so many people to the Sonic franchise. Who knows, Sonic might not have gotten as popular as it did in the 2000s if it wasn't for this show, and that's something I can respect. I still hate Chris though. Another notable series from the 2000s is Wakfu, releasing in 2008. Yeah, not everyone knows this, but this series is actually based on a strategy game of the same name, so it technically counts as a video game adaptation. This series is absolutely beautiful. It's animated by the French studio Kombat Animation, and the visuals here are amazing. To think that this was all animated in Flash in 2008 is really impressive. The fight scenes are really snappy and smooth, and the visuals overall are beautiful. My only real complaint with the series would have to be the dialogue, at least in the English dub. The series is originally from France, so if you watch it dubbed like how I did, the dialogue feels really awkward and stilted. Many of the voice actors sound like they're phoning it in or not even trying, so I'd say if you watch the series, then you definitely should watch it subbed. And I'd say it's definitely worth a watch, even just for the visuals alone. I'm only a few episodes in, but I've heard in later seasons it only gets better and better, so I'd say if you're hungry for an animated action show and haven't seen Wakfu, then definitely check it out. Then the 2010s came along, and let's just say this decade didn't really do much to change people's perception on video game adaptations. Sure, there were movies that featured video game characters that were pretty good, such as Wreck-It Ralph and Ready Player One, which, despite what most people say, I actually find to be a pretty fun movie. However, they're not really game adaptations. Yeah, they feature characters from video games, but they're not adaptations of games that already exist, so I'm not gonna count them. The decade started out with the Tekken movie, which was hated by pretty much all fans of the series, including the series creator. Wow, what a great start to the decade. Then there was the Prince of Persia movie by Disney, which while being pretty well received financially, was still pretty lacking in its story and characters. With this movie, it seemed like Disney was trying to recapture the success of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but not quite getting it right. This is something they're still trying to do to this very day, with the Lone Ranger movie and the Jungle Cruise movie. So while not a horrible movie, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time still falls flat in many ways. On the show side of things, we see the rise of many game adaptations being animated in 3D, such as Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures and the Sonic Boom series. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures is a series based on the games of the same name. Yeah, around this time, Namco was trying to reinvent the Pac-Man franchise, giving him more of a world and a bunch of new characters. This started out with a game on the Wii U, and of course, the show, releasing around the same time. The show takes place in the city known as Pacopolis, with Pac-Man being portrayed as a kid attending school with his best friends Spiral and Cylindria. Get it? 'Cause they're circles. One day, Pac-Man accidentally opens a portal to the Netherworld, releasing an army of ghosts ruled by the evil Lord Betrayus. Pac-Man and his friends must then protect their world from these ghosts, being joined by many goofy characters along the way. Yeah, this show is unsurprisingly not very good. They tried so badly to make Pac-Man cool and hip for a modern audience, but that's just not what Pac-Man is. It kinda feels like they were trying to make Pac-Man into the next Sonic with this show, giving him a new cast of characters to interact with and a new design that is just... well, it's not bad, I just wouldn't let my kids near him. When I look at Sonic, I think, okay, here's this cool hedgehog that runs fast. When I look at Pac-Man, I go, okay, here's what a bunch of studio heads think kids will find hip. Speaking of Sonic, around the same time we also got the Sonic Boom Show, being the 5th show to be made so far based on the Sonic franchise. God damn, there's been a lot of Sonic this video, huh? In its concept, this show actually shares a lot of similarities to the Ghostly Adventures. They were both based on a Wii U game that was trying to reinvent the franchise for a modern audience, they were both animated in 3D, and they both feature drastic new changes for the designs of the main characters. There is one major difference though, and that is that Sonic Boom is not complete dogshit. Yeah, the Sonic Boom Show is actually not that bad, which is surprising because the game it's based on is regarded as one of the worst games in the franchise. The show takes place in an alternate universe where Sonic and his friends live on an island where they hang out and protect their village from Dr. Eggman among other villains. Yeah, it's definitely very different from the Sonic we're used to, featuring a new location, new lankier designs for the main characters, and also a new addition to the cast, being Styx the Badger. I actually quite like Styx. She's got a fun personality and can also be very funny in some scenes. Part of me kinda wish that they bring her into the mainline Sonic games, but oh well, I guess she's doomed to be stuck in Sonic Boom limbo for all eternity. The show is notable for being very meta. You can tell the writers were very aware of the Sonic fandom, making references to fanfictions, obsessive fans, and even a reference to the one and only Chris Chan. The show at its core is a comedy, which while leading to many hilarious moments, was also a little disappointing for the fans who wanted Sonic to take a more serious approach. It makes fun of itself a lot, treating many of its characters as jokes and making them dumber than they should be, most notably with Knuckles, who is just a straight-up dumbass in this show. If you're looking for a more mature Sonic story with characters that take themselves seriously, then this is definitely not a show for you. But if you just want something fun that you can just have a laugh with, then I would actually recommend checking out the Sonic Boom Show. Just, stay away from the game. Please. For your own sake. Now, throughout the first half of this decade, things stayed pretty much the same as in the 2000s. However, I'd say the year that changed this was 2016. The year started out with the animated Ratchet & Clank movie, being based on a remake of the first Ratchet & Clank game that released around the same time. Now, this movie is not very good. It's pretty much a scene-for-scene remake of the 2016 game, now being a movie instead. Now, the problem with that is that now that you take away the gameplay aspect, you're just kinda left with a generic kids movie set in space. The reason people play Ratchet & Clank games isn't because of the story, no. They play it because of the cool weapons, exploring the worlds, and just the gameplay in general. When you take away the things that make the franchise so beloved in the first place, you're just kinda left with a movie that if it didn't have the name of a popular game series attached, people probably wouldn't pay that much attention to it at all. However, it did do one thing right, actually feeling like the source material. This is something that for some reason many video game movies always fail at, but with this one there's absolutely no doubt that it is a Ratchet & Clank movie. So while not being very good on its own, it did make people a little more hopeful for the future of video game adaptations. Then we got Angry Birds.
Angry Birds.
Okay, listen, I know I'll sound like a madman for saying this, but the Angry Birds movie is actually one of the better video game adaptations. Now wait. Now, is the Angry Birds movie a masterpiece? No. It's got countless unfunny jokes, annoying characters, and a plot that if you think about it is kind of racist, but ignoring its many flaws, it's still a pretty fun movie. It takes place on an island of happy birds, with our main character being Red, who's an angry bird.
No!
He gets sent to anger management, which is where he meets Chuck, a bird who can run really fast, and Bomb, who can explode. One day, a bunch of pigs arrive on the island, saying that they come in peace and have no ill intent, while Red is suspicious. Turns out his suspicions are correct, since the pigs are revealed to all be after the birds' eggs, stealing them with the plan to eat them. So in response, Red and the others go to the pigs' island and decide to destroy their city and take back their eggs. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, the plot of this movie kinda has some, let's just say, racist undertones. I mean, it's about a group of pigs who arrive in a new place who are nice and friendly at first, but then turn out to be evil child stealers who then have their city destroyed by the birds. It sorta leaves you wondering what the message of the movie is. Is it to never trust people who are different from you because they might turn out to be evil and steal your kids? But you know, ignoring all that, it is still a pretty fun movie, and it was also a huge box office success, even so much that it got a sequel in 2019. Now, while I think the first movie is a flawed yet fun movie, the sequel is just outright good. Yeah, I'm not kidding, the Angry Birds movie 2 is actually a really charming and funny movie. Not ironically either, like so many previous video game adaptations, but a genuinely really good movie that I wouldn't mind watching again. So yeah, around this time, video game adaptations were actually improving quite a lot. There was a Warcraft movie that was pretty well received by fans, a new 3D animated Mega Man show that was okay, and also a new Tomb Raider movie that was much better received than the Tomb Raider movies from the 2000s. We also got an animated Castlevania series that released in 2017, which I've heard is really well received. I wouldn't know myself, cause mama says I'm not allowed to watch things with vampires cause they make me wet the bed. Then, it happened. What I would call the first great live-action video game adaptation released, that being Rampage starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Okay, fine, I'll talk about Detective Pikachu. This movie released in 2019 and is based on a 3DS game of the same name. Now, I don't know why they decided to adapt this game specifically, but God, I love this movie so much. Compared to the many previous Pokemon movies, this one was done in live action with a budget of $150 million US, and you can really tell. The world here feels so alive. Around every corner you see different Pokemon, and they all look beautiful in 3D. They really managed to strike a perfect blend of cartoony and realistic designs for the Pokemon. The furry texture on Pikachu, the scales on Charizard, the frog-like appearance of Greninja, every Pokemon looks absolutely perfect in this world, and they really feel like the Pokemon brought to life. Well, except for Gengar, I don't know what they were thinking there. And the story is surprisingly good too. It's about a guy named Tim Goodman who, after finding out his father died in an accident, runs into his dad's Pokemon, being a Pikachu, who he's somehow able to communicate with. They then discover that maybe Tim's father isn't actually dead, so they decide to go out and solve the mystery of Tim's dad, while also learning about a mysterious serum called R that for some reason turns Pokemon aggressive. I love this movie to bits. It's genuinely really funny, really heartfelt, it's got some great action scenes, and a twist that I genuinely got caught off guard by when I first saw it. This is how a video game movie should be done. It's respectful to its source material, but it also doesn't feel like a rehash of something we've already seen before. I just wish we could have gotten more live-action Pokemon movies. For a while there were talks about adapting the OG Pokemon games from the Game Boy into a movie of a similar style, but it looks like that was either scrapped or postponed. Oh well, hopefully one day we'll see another live-action Pokemon movie, but in the meantime, at least we got Detective Pikachu. Okay, update. Right in the middle of making this video, it got announced that we're apparently getting a sequel to Detective Pikachu. Oh my god. Now, this is cool and all, but like, what are they even gonna do with the sequel? The whole movie focuses on the fact that Pikachu can talk, but if you've seen the ending of the movie, that's not really possible anymore. So, what are they gonna do? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Still pretty excited though. Okay, let's talk about Sonic now. In 2019, the first trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie released, featuring an, interesting design choice for Sonic to say the least. To say people did not like this design would be an understatement. People were mad. They were calling him ugly, they were calling him gross, people were making memes, people were sending hate mail to the studio, people were saying Sonic killed their entire family. It got so bad that eventually, the studio just said screw it, and decided to delay the movie so they could change the design for Sonic, and it definitely turned out a lot better. So the moral of the story, if you want something, then just cry about it on the internet until you get what you want. Then in 2020, the movie actually released, being a surprisingly pretty decent movie. It was generally liked by fans and general audiences, while being less liked by critics. I'm kind of in the middle. While I do enjoy parts of it, I don't think overall that it's a very great adaptation. It's one of those animated live-action hybrids, with Sonic being in the real world interacting with humans, following around this police officer named Tom on a road trip across America, after he gets the attention of Dr. Robotnik, who wants to capture him. My problem with this movie is that it just feels kinda generic, like you could switch out Sonic for any other character and the story would pretty much remain the same. It also doesn't really feel all that much like a Sonic movie. His homeworld is only really seen once in the beginning of the movie, and nowhere to be seen are his classic friends from the games, other than Tails being in a post-credit scene.
What? No, it's got a ton of classic Sonic characters, like, Wade! You know, the classic Sonic character, Wade!
The best part of the movie, though, is undoubtedly Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. He absolutely kills it in this role, and he's no doubt the funniest character in the movie. While he doesn't really feel or look like the Dr. Robotnik we know and love from the games, I can excuse it because the character is just so fun to watch whenever he's on screen. Now, while the first Sonic movie is pretty good, I'd say the second movie is definitely superior. The second Sonic movie is an improvement in every sense of the word. There's more characters from the Sonic franchise, such as Tails and Knuckles, more action, and also generally more Sonic-like locations. This time, instead of pairing him up with a human character, they pair Sonic up with Tails. These two make a really good duo. They sort of feel like a big brother and little brother dynamic, which I really enjoy. In this movie, they also introduced Knuckles, and god damn, he is so cool in this. They actually treat him seriously here, with him being an antagonist for half of the movie, until he eventually realizes that Dr. Robotnik is just using him to get the Master Emerald. Oh yeah, Robotnik's back, and this time he's more insane than ever. In the first movie alone, he was pretty crazy. Here though, he's just plain out lost his mind. In the end of the first movie, Sonic defeats him and sends him to this mushroom planet, where he pretty much goes insane, and I'm all for it. This movie is an improvement in every way, and it just makes me more excited to see what they do with the franchise in the future. If the first movie was okay, and the second movie was good, then I believe the third movie could be something really spectacular. Or it'll be terrible and disappoint everyone, who knows. Speaking of movies that were terrible and disappointed everyone, the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie. Yeah, in 2021 they decided to make a movie based on Mortal Kombat. Again, when it came out, many people praised it, talking about how the violence was much more, well, violent compared to the 1995 movie. Yeah, people get killed in this movie, not just punched and then dying. No. People get their throats sliced, arms ripped off, flipped cut in half. Okay, I actually don't think we can show this part. And while yes, the violence is much better in this movie, that's really the only thing that is. The rest of the movie just kind of fails in comparison. While yes, the 95 movie could be very cheesy, at least it was charming. And hey, at least they actually do the Mortal Kombat tournament in that one. Yeah, for some reason, they never do the tournament in this. They just kind of dick around and kill each other for 2 hours. It just baffles me to why they did this. It's like if you were watching a soccer game and instead of seeing them play the actual game, they just have a fight in the locker room instead. My guess is they're probably saving it for the sequel, if that's ever even coming out. But like, a movie called Mortal Kombat should at least feature the Mortal Kombat tournament, come on! Not even the trio from the original movie is here. We got Sonya, Liu Kang, and instead of Johnny Cage, we get Cole.
Who?
You know, Cole!
Huh?
You know, the iconic Mortal Kombat character, Cole.
Oh, you mean the guy from Ninjago?
Yeah, for some reason, they decided to replace Johnny Cage with this guy, Cole, who isn't even a character from the original games. Yeah, they just straight up invented a new character to be the protagonist for this movie, and he's the most boring piece of shit ever. There are so many characters from this franchise to choose to make the main character, but no, you made this guy? Cole? That's like them remaking Star Wars, but instead of Luke Skywalker, the main character is a random guy named Dave. He really just feels like someone's self-insert or OC. Apparently, he's a relative of Scorpion, and throughout the movie he discovers that his power is plot armor. I'm not kidding, his power is literally a piece of armor on his chest, and arm blades? He doesn't even get a cool mask like Scorpion or anything. No, his power is pretty much just a metal shirt with police batons. Wow, how exciting. The only saving grace of this movie is the violence and Kano. Kano is definitely the best character here. While everyone else just feels like they're played by an emotionless robot, Kano actually brings some life into the movie. I also think he's responsible for like 90% of the movie's curse words. So yeah, while featuring better effects, better violence, and Daddy Kano, the movie overall just sucks compared to the 1995 movie. If you're looking for an actual good Mortal Kombat movie, then just go watch that one. Or just watch Scorpion's Revenge, I hear that one's pretty good. Now, from a violent movie about people fighting each other to the death, to a goofy kids cartoon about two Cup brothers. This is the Cuphead show, based on the game Cuphead. This was a no-brainer to make. I mean, the original game is already animated in this beautiful animation style reminiscent of old Rubber Hose cartoons from the 30s. So how does it translate to being a cartoon? Well, pretty well, I'd say. It obviously doesn't look exactly like the game, being animated in Flash instead of by hand, which I can understand. While the game does look very beautiful, it also took a very long time to make. Hand-drawn animation is a long process, especially when it looks as good as this, so I understand why they chose to go with Flash instead. So, how's the actual show? Well, I'd say it's a pretty darn fun and goofy cartoon. We follow Cuphead and his brother Mugman as they get up to all kinds of adventures and shenanigans in the Inkwell Isles. One day after a run-in with a devil, yes, that devil, Cuphead accidentally sets loose a bunch of his stolen souls, which angers him and leads to him trying to get revenge on Cuphead in future episodes, such as trying to capture his soul and trick him. Not all episodes follow this format though. Sometimes it'll just be about Cuphead and Mugman goofing around or running into some goofy characters. This show doesn't take itself very seriously, but at the end of the day, it doesn't need to. It's just here to have fun, and that's something I can respect. In an age of so many story-focused cartoons with complex characters and lore, it's a pretty nice change of pace to just see a cartoon that's just here to goof around with some funny characters. Now, all of the positives I just listed are mainly for Season 1, because honestly, I felt like the second and third season kinda lost a bit of the charm of the first. I don't know what it is, if they got new writers or if they just got bored, but the second and third seasons were a huge step down for me. I don't know, many of the jokes here didn't really land for me. Much of it is just repeating one joke over and over again, hoping you'll eventually find it funny, but it never gets funny. I know people will hate me for saying this, but it kinda reminded me a bit of Modern Family Guy. Scenes will just go on and on, talking about the same things over and over and over again, and it just leads you to wanting them to just get on with it already. So yeah, while I started out strong, I think the Cuphead show kinda fell off after Season 1. That said, Season 1 is still very strong, and I would absolutely recommend checking it out. Recently, we've also gotten a 6th Sonic show, that being Sonic Prime on Netflix. Now, I haven't really had time to watch this show yet, but I'll definitely be checking it out soon. The people who watched it claim it to be the best Sonic show yet, and looking at the trailers, I can definitely see why. This animation is absolutely gorgeous, and the action seems to be really well done. I really feel like this is the Sonic show people have been wanting for so long now. Oh yeah, I just remembered something. There was an Uncharted movie. Yeah, in 2022, an Uncharted movie released, starring Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. I will never understand why they casted Tom Holland specifically to play this role. I mean, look at Nathan Drake. And now look at Tom Holland. That is not the same person! But yeah, other than the absurd casting decision, this movie was still a pretty big hit, succeeding at the box office as well as getting pretty decent reviews. But decent just isn't good enough. If only there was a video game adaptation that was actually great. Heck, even better than the game it's adapting. That'll never happen, right? No, Halo, I'm not talking about you. You can go die in a hole. Here we are, the most recent video game adaptation to date, that being The Last of Us. This series is very new, starting earlier this year, and god damn is it good. Words cannot describe how amazing this series is. It's based on a game that already has an amazing story on its own, but the creators of this show decided to take that and somehow make it even better. The Last of Us takes place in a world where humanity has been infected with a dangerous fungus that if you come in contact with, will turn you into a terrifying parasite monster. This has caused humanity to collapse, with the people not infected struggling to survive. The series follows Joel, a man who lost his daughter as the outbreak happened, who finds this girl named Ellie, who for some reason doesn't seem to be affected by the fungus. The show then follows Joel and Ellie as they travel through America, looking for someone who may be able to use Ellie's blood to make a cure for the infection, while Joel and Ellie form a strong bond, with Joel getting more and more protective of Ellie, almost becoming a father figure to her. The show follows the games very closely, sometimes even having scenes of dialogue be the exact same between the two. However, it's not afraid to change some things up too, which I think really benefits the series. Sometimes it'll change things to make them more happy, and sometimes it'll change things to make them way more depressing. Like, god damn, this series can hit you in the feels sometimes. Be sure to have some napkins ready when you watch it, because after every episode, it'll leave you feeling like this. God, is this show amazing. All the good things you've heard about it are 100% deserved. I'm gonna say it, this show is the best video game adaptation ever made. Yeah, I said it. I would be surprised if anything ever comes close to being as good as this masterpiece. It truly is a miracle that this show is as good as it is, but somehow, it is! They actually managed to make not an okay adaptation, not a good adaptation, not even a great adaptation, but an amazing show that's not only an amazing adaptation, but a legitimately amazing series on its own that can be enjoyed even if you've never played the games. The Last of Us truly is the best of the best when it comes to video game adaptations. Thanks to this show, I can actually feel hopeful for the future of these. If the upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's movie is anything like this series, then I can guarantee we've got another game adaptation hit on our hands. But even if it's not, then I'm sure we'll still get a fun movie regardless. The upcoming Mario movie also seems to be shaking up to be another great game adaptation, which is surprising considering it's done by Illumination, creator of the Minions. This movie really seems like it's gonna be an ultimate love letter to the fans, and you already know that when it comes out, I will be watching it with the biggest grin on my face. Well, that was a look through some of the most notable video game adaptations. There were some highs and many lows, but I think ultimately looking through these movies and shows has been very fun. While most of these turned out to be not very good, you gotta take into account that, well, they were all done by people. People who had a unique vision for what these games should be, and while they weren't always the vision that fans or even general audiences agreed with, I can still appreciate all these people for wanting to do something new with these franchises. And hey, while not always panning out the way they planned, the most important thing is that they tried, and now that gaming is becoming less of a niche and more mainstream, video game adaptations can finally have another chance of standing toe-to-toe to other movies and shows. That being said, I still hate Uwe Boll.
Well, that was sure a fun day of watching shows and movies on my super awesome flat screen TV.
Super awesome flat screen TV.
Never mind. They've taken my super awesome flat screen TV!
Super awesome flat screen TV.
Will you shut up, please?
Sorry.
Can't you tell I'm trying to fake cry right now?
The footprints, they're leading to... Wait, our TV? Wait, where is our TV?
Oh, hi, Joe. Yeah, someone took it. I was just sitting here talking about video game adaptations, and now it's gone! Why does everything I love have to get taken from me?
Wait a minute. If the footprints lead to here, and our TV is gone, then... Oh my god. CJ, I think I know what happened to all the electronics.